Well, this day began with the announcement of the Emmy nominations, honoring some, but not all, of the very best work done on television in the last year, which makes it a fitting day to consider how much damage television has done in some of the places where we are allowed to point our cameras. I am speaking, of course, about what television has done to the congressional hearing as we approach the 70th year of television coverage of congressional hearings.
This hearing has turned into absolute chaos, and I yield back.
That happened at 11:39 a.m. today, 69 years after the first televised congressional hearing, which were, in their day, the ugliest hearings that the Congress had ever seen.
I beg your pardon. Let us not assassinate this lad further, Senator. You've done enough. Have you no sense of decency, sir? At long last, have you left no sense of decency?
That was Boston Attorney Joseph Welch condemning Republican Senator Joseph McCarthy, the chairman of the first televised congressional hearings, which turned out to be an embarrassing week that ultimately brought shame and disgrace on Joe McCarthy and turned his name into an ism that for decades had as powerful a political ring as communism or fascism. McCarthyism. Joe McCarthy, who sunk into alcoholism and disgrace, is the only member of Congress in history whose name created a condemning label, McCarthyism. Joe McCarthy was running sham investigations in his committee and pushing completely fake accusations against innocent people and lying about it day in and day out. Most Republicans were embarrassed by Joe McCarthy in those days. The Republican president at the time, Dwight Eisenhower, wanted nothing to do with Joe McCarthy. In a few short years, the flames of McCarthyism burned out. But the televised congressional hearing was born thanks to Joe McCarthy. The year after the first televised McCarthy hearing came the first televised Senate confirmation hearing for a Supreme Court justice. Prior to that confirmation hearing, of that televised confirmation hearing, only 2 justices in the history of the Supreme Court had confirmation hearings. Confirmation hearings were not a thing until television made them a thing. As the televised hearing for Supreme Court justices aged, it became ever more absurd. A television show that was never good turned awful and pointless. Senate confirmation hearings for Supreme Court justices are not a pursuit of the truth or an examination of the fine points of legal scholarship. They exist entirely because of television. Television invented the Senate confirmation hearing for Supreme Court justices, and we are not the better for it. 58 years after Joe McCarthy died, a Republican politician created by television, who was every bit as stupid as Joe McCarthy and as reckless, came along to blow on the embers of McCarthyism and, to much surprise, including mine, the embers ignited and the flame began to burn again with Donald Trump running for president in a way no one had ever run for president before, with a McCarthyism zealotry aimed at his opponent, leading the chant, "Lock her up." There was not a single Republican in Congress before Donald Trump began running for president who would have publicly advocated locking up any other politician without a trial. That was Donald Trump's idea, and it swept through the Republican Party in the House of Representatives like a wildfire of madness. Republicans like Jim Jordan did not grow up with the ambition to become the next Joe McCarthy. Republicans Jim Jordan's age grew up with the ambition of wanting to be the next Ronald Reagan, and now Jim Jordan does his job as the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee in a way that even Joe McCarthy would think was out of control. The witness at today's hearing of the House Judiciary Committee was FBI Director Christopher Wray. Jim Jordan and other Republicans used the hearing to pretend that the FBI is an arm of the Democratic Party, that the FBI had no legal reason to search Donald Trump's Florida residence for government documents and classified documents, and that the FBI's investigation of Hunter Biden was designed to protect Hunter Biden.
The idea that I'm biased against conservatives seems somewhat insane to me, given my own personal background.
You started out as an AUSA, and I'm getting this information from Wikipedia, the great font of knowledge in the digital age, and so I'm assuming that it's true, but you started out as an AUSA. You were nominated by Republican President Bush for the position of Assistant Attorney General in the Criminal Division at the Department of Justice, and you were confirmed by a Republican Senate, if I am correct in that.
Yes, by unanimous voice vote.
And you were then nominated by Republican President Donald Trump to be the FBI director, and again confirmed by the Republican Senate for that position.
Yes, I think there were only 5 votes against me, and they were all from Democrats.
Can you describe how the search was executed?
Well, we had the case team, follow its standard procedure. It has sometimes been described as a SWAT operation. It was not. There was no SWAT involvement. But beyond that, I think I want to be really careful with getting too far into the details now that this case is not only in the hands of a special counsel, but more importantly, in my view, in front of the court. And I learned a long time ago as a line prosecutor and defense lawyer to respect the court process is where I think we should speak.
Were particular steps taken to ensure that the execution of the search warrant did not draw undue attention?
I think there were steps along those lines, yes, sir.
Can you name a couple of them?
Well, among other things, we did not have people coming in so-called raid jackets, which is often something you would see.
So in other words, the FBI agents executing the search wore plain clothes so as not to attract undue attention. And the FBI waited until Trump had left Mar-a-Lago to execute the search. Is that correct?
Yes.
Director Wray, a ballroom, a bathroom, a bedroom, are those appropriate places to store classified, confidential information?
Well, again, I don't want to be commenting on the pending case, but I will say that there are specific rules about where to store classified information and that those need to be stored in a SCIF, a secure compartmentalized information facility. And in my experience, ballrooms, bathrooms, and bedrooms are not SCIFs.
The FBI works to stop terrorist attacks on American soil, right?
Yes.
Okay. The FBI's mission also includes counterintelligence, correct?
Yes.
And that means the FBI works to stop espionage of American companies and organizations. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. The FBI's mission includes stopping cybercrime, right?
Correct.
The FBI's mission includes stopping public corruption, right?
Correct.
The FBI's mission includes stopping weapons of mass destruction from being detonated on American soil, right?
Yes, we work with others on it, but yes.
The FBI's mission includes going after organized crime, right?
Yes.
You go after violent crime, correct?
Yes.
You also go after white-collar crime, right?
Yes.
The FBI's mission also includes going after child sex trafficking, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Republican members of their caucus, including members on this committee, have asked to defund the FBI. One member on this committee from Arizona wrote that the FBI, quote, should be defunded and dismantled.
The Republican performance artists on that committee showed up for this hearing today because it was on TV. Republicans were trying to create their own video moments that would be played on Fox and online to stoke the delusions of Trump voters who are their voters. Florida Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz did a dramatic reading of a text that has been declared a complete fake by Hunter Biden's lawyer, the highly experienced and effective Abbe Lowell, who wrote a 9-page letter to the House of Representatives showing all of the evidence that the text that is supposed to be from Hunter Biden and read by Congressman Gaetz today is completely and utterly fake. The text was supposed to have been written in 2017, but it includes a photo of Hunter Biden from 2022. Abbe Lowell pointed out that everything about the image of the text is fake. In his letter to the Republicans in the House, he said both images portray the message in a blue bubble when WhatsApp messages are in green. One image superimposed the Chinese flag for the contact ID when surely that was not how a text or contact was kept. And then, of course, there is the too good to be true language of the text, which is just a perfectly written text for someone who is trying to suggest that Hunter Biden was using his father's influence in business deals.
I'm sitting here with my father. I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. I am sitting here waiting for the call with my father. Sounds like a shakedown, doesn't it, Director?
I'm not going to get into commenting on that.
You seem deeply uncurious about it, don't you? Almost suspiciously uncurious. Are you protecting the Bidens?
Absolutely not. The FBI does not and has no interest in
You won't answer the
protecting
question
anyone
about whether or not
politically.
that's a shakedown, and everybody knows why you won't answer it. Because to the millions of people who will see this, they know it is. And your inability to acknowledge that is deeply revealing about you.
No, it's not. The FBI director cannot comment on any investigation of Hunter Biden. That exchange is actually deeply revealing about Congressman Gates and all the other Republican members of the House of Representatives who are the most avid practitioners of McCarthyism since Joe McCarthy. If America is lucky, the careers of Joe McCarthy's acolytes in the 21st century House of Representatives will someday collapse, as Joe McCarthy's did, under the sheer weight of disgrace.